Hi, welcome to the Cancer New Moon. So, as you can see, I'm out in the woods and we're going to talk about some herbs that are good for this Cancer New Moon and some ways in which we can return to ourselves. That's what Cancer is all about. So, if you don't know me, hi, I'm Charlotte Webb. I am the owner of Homestead Herbal. I'm a medical herbalist and a student of medical astrology. So, I like to combine herbal medicine and the wisdom from the plants with the current planetary transits, and I do videos every 2 weeks on what the moon is up to, so every full moon and every new moon. So let's get into it. New moon is always a reset, a new opportunity, a chance to look at where we are in alignment, whereas the full moon is an opportunity to reflect and release. It's often quite emotional. New moons are a chance to just set the seed and see where we are and see what's changed in the last 6 months from the Cancer full moon, which was in January. So, Cancer is the sign of home. It's the fourth sign of the zodiac and it's associated with the mother, mothering, and the home, the physical home that you live in, and also your emotional home. And for most of us, we don't have a home within ourselves, and that's one of my jobs, to work with patients and to help inspire you guys on socials as well, to create that home within yourself so that you are always your own safe space and safe place to land. The sign of Cancer is also ruled by the moon naturally. So this is the moon right now on the 14th in her home sign of Cancer. This is where she naturally is, where she feels comfortable, where she feels safe and secure. And she's asking you, what do you need in order to feel safe and secure? What do you need in your life? What do you need from yourself in order to have this feeling of safety and security? What do you actually need? Now, not what you want to say, but what you actually mean. This Cancer moon is asking for emotional integrity and truth, because there can be nothing without that. In medical astrology, Cancer rules the chest, the breasts in women, and the womb, whether that is the physical womb as an organ or whether that is the energetic imprint of where the womb used to be. It's our creative centre as women and can be a portal as well. So the herbs that we're going to look at today focus on these areas. We also have the Sun in Cancer at the moment, and we have Mercury still in retrograde at Cancer. So this is extra potent Cancer energy, which can mean things coming up from your past that want to be expressed, particularly if these are emotional things to do with childhood, things to do with the home that you first knew, things to do with your mother, things to do with the home that you now have, whether that's physical or whether that's emotional. And it also has to do with children, your own children as well, whether they are adults or whether they are still small children. So don't be surprised if lots of things have been coming up the last few weeks and will still continue to come up in the next week or two that are around this theme of revisiting childhood, looking at what's going right, looking at what's going wrong. Lots of themes around the past. Cancer is a sign of the past. It loves to delve deep and go back into the ancestry and to look at the lineage and where you've come from. So this could be, if you identify with the expression generational curse breaker, you could be really going through it right now. So I really relate to the Cancer energy in general, as I'm a Cancer rising. A lot of astrologers, and I'm not an astrologer yet, I'm a student, but a lot of astrologers are Cancer rising, and that is because we have Pisces in the 9th house, which is all to do with expression and exploration of spiritual themes, not just the physical world as well. So that's just something that I've noticed. There's a lot of us Cancer risings about. If you're one, drop me a note in the comment and let me know. Positive attributes with Cancers, whether you're a Cancer sun, Cancer moon, Cancer rising, or just relate strongly to the Cancer theme. The positive attributes here is that we tend to be very nurturing, very caregiving, can be a little bit overgiving, and this leads to the shadow side as well, which is where you've overgiven to the point where you're now depleted and hate everybody and you get resentful. So the trick with Cancer is to pull back. You know, if you think of Cancer, she is the crab. She can live on the land and in shallow waters as well, and she scuttles between the two sideways. So just like that, like some sort of piano crab hybrid. So when I am working with Cancer people, Cancerian people who have Cancer placements, not the medical condition, I'm not talking about that right now. we often can be overgiving to the point where we then get resentful. So the trick is to pull back before that happens, to pull back like the tide, to go from the sea to the shore, to get some stability, to ground in yourself, to create that home within yourself before you venture out into somebody else's emotional waters again, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. I tend to work with patients who are very caring, very giving, but do tend to have some people-pleasing tendencies, and often this can mean violating your own boundaries in order to keep somebody else happy, and this is known as people-pleasing. People-pleasing looks polite, and especially if you're British, you're quite socialised into doing this, but it is actually fear. And it's not helpful. Psychologically, it's not helpful. If you are abandoning yourself, if you're not listening to your own no, in order to say yes to somebody else, you're going to pay for that. Your body is keeping the score all the time of whether you are authentic, whether you are congruent, whether you are actually saying what you mean. And if this is not happening, you will have all sorts of health issues, chronic issues that won't go until you address the underlying problem, which is very often self-abandonment. So this Cancer moon is very on the nose and asking, where are you self-abandoning? Because actual nourishment starts with you. You can't feed somebody else. You won't have the energy or the resources if you are not nourished emotionally as well. And this Cancer new moon is asking you to tend to that, not in a punitive way. It's not about, being cross with yourself, being angry. It's about softness and care and deep, authentic body wisdom. Not wisdom that lives up here, wisdom that lives in our womb, wisdom that lives in our solar plexus, wisdom that comes from the earth herself. And that's why I'm filming out in this beautiful location today, because I've prepared some things I'd like to say to you, but there is always wisdom that just sort of drops in when I'm out in nature like this, because the plants want to say things, the just whole environment wants to speak, and I love it. I feel very connected to the earth here, and I hope that it comes through in this video and that you can relax and have a little reset moment for yourself while you're watching this as well, because we don't get enough of it. This moon is an invitation to tend to yourself in the same way that you tend to everybody else, and I know you do. And to remind you that boundaries are not walls to keep other people out or to keep your true personality in. They're actually a container, and they keep love sustainable. They keep the relationship going. Because if you don't have boundaries, you're going to end up with resentment. And then you won't want to show up in that relationship, whatever that relationship is. And this includes yourself. You have to keep your own promises to yourself. If you are not keeping promises to yourself, this is where lack of self-confidence, low self-esteem, and self-trust problems come in. And I see this all the time with patients who are living with chronic illness. They feel that their body has let them down. They feel that they can't rely on themselves. And so this feeds into a low self-confidence and self-esteem issues, which can take a little while to get going again. We're going to move now, and I'm going to show you our first herb, which is the beautiful raspberry leaf. So this is the beautiful raspberry bush. You can see she's got gorgeous wild raspberries here, which are so tasty. I came here yesterday and just had a little munch on some, offered them to my dog as well. They're very nutritious for dogs. So you can see she's got these 3 leaves here, and underneath they are paler. And she has little hairs on the stems, which can turn into spikes when the bush is a little older as well. So that's how to identify it. Really, really easy in summer. And take note of where your local raspberry bushes are, because in spring you can come back and you can gather the leaves when they're at their most potent before the berries have come out. But you won't know that unless you look this summer where they are. So raspberry leaf is a classic Cancer herb. She is ruled by Venus, she is deeply feminine, and the leaves and the berries are deeply nourishing as well. So in clinic, I use raspberry leaf as a womb tonic. So this herb is going to be really useful for women who are trying to become pregnant, women who are in the last trimester of pregnancy. There are a lot of caveats to this, so don't just go wanging ahead with the raspberry leaf. And it's very mineral rich, calcium, iron, magnesium, and all these are very highly absorbable, highly useful, and very easily used by the body when they're in a tea, which I will show you how to make as well. So it doesn't just nourish our physical womb as well, it nourishes our energetic womb, which is our creative center. And This is your capacity to hold life and to nurture life, your ideas, your creativity, whatever it is you're bringing to the fore. I think a lot of people think that creativity is about painting, drawing, perhaps writing, but creativity can be this. It can be making videos, it can be expressing yourself, it can be the way that you dress, the way that you do your makeup, the way that you are with people. Creativity is a way of being, it's not an act, and it's not the end result of something either. And what I often find is that when patients are finished working with me, or when they're towards the end of working with me, they get back their creativity, something that they've lost to self-abandonment, to raging ADHD that's ruining their lives, to autistic symptoms that just are not where they want to be. You know, I don't aim to get rid of autism or ADHD, it's not possible, but you can mitigate the symptoms that are trashing your life. You know, you can learn to live well with it as well. And I really think that one of the herbs that works well for this is raspberry leaf, because you can use it right from starting your periods, you know, as a teenager, right through to being a young woman, motherhood if that's what you choose, postpartum again if you've chosen motherhood, and then to regulate your periods. And also it's great for menopause support as well. So she really is the woman's herb. No wonder she's associated with Venus and the womb. Raspberry leaf is asking us here, what are you gestating right now? What are you pregnant with? This might be literal for you, this might be ideas. You know, for me, I am working on some really exciting writing projects at the moment, so I'm very much in my creative zone and listening to my own inner voice and knowing where to stop, because starting is one thing, knowing where to stop is another. One of my favourite things about raspberry leaf is her effect on the nervous system, which just isn't talked about, but nervous system work is something that threads through all of my work with herbs. It's very gently nourishing and restorative because it is so mineral rich. This naturally supports the nervous system. When our nervous system is depleted, it uses so many more vitamins and minerals. If you are autistic or ADHD or both, or living with chronic illnesses, your body is probably using a lot more minerals than it's actually getting. You're probably in a mineral debt. This can show up with hormone imbalances as well. Quite often, the bottom of the problem can be mineral deficiency. It's really, really common because our soil is just not great, our food quality is just not great, and we don't incorporate wild foods enough. But look how delicious these are. Why would you not just want to eat them? You know, they're so yummy. It's a really lovely and simple way to get nourishment into you with all these packed nutrients, is to just go and forage some wild berries. Check your ID, make sure that it's safe, obviously, but raspberry is one that you really can't go wrong. And it's the perfect medicine for somebody who gives a lot but doesn't replenish themselves very often. And this is what tending to yourself actually looks like. It's not dramatic, it's just consistent and choosing yourself in these small moments every day. So I'm going to show you now how to prepare this as a tea. So you've got this huge raspberry bush here, absolutely enormous. The rule with foraging is don't take more than about 10%. I wouldn't get anywhere near taking 10% of this, it's absolutely huge. So I'm going to choose some of the smaller leaves. Can you see how these are different colours? They're a little bit too old, really. So we're going to choose some of the younger, fresher leaves. Let's have a little look. This looks good. So I'm just going to snip a few of these off. So I just picked some of the leaves here, and if you're picking fresh raspberry leaves, you want about the amount that is going to fit in a tight closed fist. So that's not quite enough for 1 cup of tea for me, but I already harvested a lot at home and I didn't want to take for taking's sake, you know. I also got some gorgeous little raspberries because they're just too moreish, the perfect snack. And what you're going to do with these is you're going to give them a little wash when you get home. You're going to tear them up, and that increases the surface area, and you're going to pop them in a standard size mug, pour boiling water over, or just off the boil, either is fine for this herb, and cover it with a lid or a coaster, and then let it sit. It's a long, slow medicine, raspberry leaf. A lot of mineral-rich herbs benefit from a longer steep. So if you're familiar with brewing herbal tea, you know that about 10 to 15 minutes is quite standard. And you can do that with raspberry leaf, but I like to give it more like 20 to 30 minutes to really extract all of those minerals and to just really get the most out of it. And honestly, I have ADHD. 10 minutes is gone like that. So I will come back and find my tea when I've remembered it exists, and I will drink it, and it's never done me any harm. Also, you can add the berries as well if you want to, but they're so moreish, you just eat them straight off the bush. If you are wanting to buy a product with this in, if you go to my Etsy store, which I will link in the description and the pinned comments, you will see 2 teas, one called HRT and one called PMT, and raspberry leaf is in both of them because it's just such a wonderful women's tonic. The way I recommend taking raspberry leaf tea is if you struggle with PMT or PMS, feeling irritable before your period, I would start taking raspberry leaf about 5 days before your period and have at least 1 cup, up to 3 cups a day for that 5 days. So that's the 5 days before your period if you've got PMT. If you struggle with period pain, I would do that the 5 days beforehand, but I would also, in addition, continue to drink raspberry leaf tea for the first and second day if that's when your pain mostly is. It's also going to replenish the iron if you have heavy periods. So if you have heavy periods, I would start taking it on day 1 and drink it the whole way through your bleed too, and maybe a couple of days after. If you get really tired and a bit like in a slump and a bit grumpy when your period's finished, you might be iron deficient, and this is really going to help. Chuck in some nettle as well if you know you struggle with heavy bleeding and iron deficiency, because the thing about heavy bleeding is it causes iron deficiency, and the thing about iron deficiency is it can cause heavy bleeding. So it's a nasty cycle that you can just come and snip in with raspberry leaf and nettle. If you are menopausal or perimenopausal and you would like some hormonal support, the best way to take raspberry leaf tea is just to take it a couple of times a week as a tea, as a gentle nutritive tonic. So it's in my daily mix, of which I have 2 cups a day. So I have several different teas in there, which I've done another video on. Let me know if you want me to link you to it, I'll put it in the comments. And raspberry leaf is in one of mine because it gives that hormonal support. It helps our endocrine system to use the hormones we already have in our body and to flush out the ones that we don't need anymore, so we're not storing estrogen, because stored estrogen in the liver is one of the problems that a lot of women get with menopause. If you are pregnant, you will need to check with your midwife if you can start raspberry leaf tea. I generally recommend that my patients, so that's not the whole of YouTube, I'm not responsible for you, you have to do your own research, but my patients who are pregnant take it in the last 3 months of their pregnancy if they're having an uncomplicated pregnancy, and then they will take it during labour to help with the contractions, to make them more effective, because raspberry leaf works on the walls, the smooth muscle of the uterine walls, to make your contractions more effective so that they're not sort of going to waste. You're getting more bang for your buck with your contractions and getting the whole show on the road quicker. And then you would take it for as long as you're breastfeeding to top up your mineral balance. So that is how I recommend you use raspberry leaf tea. You can, of course, just dip in and out. You don't have to be rigid with it. But I always find with mineral-rich teas that the longer you take them for, the more benefit you're going to get. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that I always like to pull a tarot card associated from the Spirit of Herbs tarot deck by Michael Tierra, and raspberry leaf in his deck is associated with the Queen of Wands. I'll let you look there at the image so you can see. So you can see that this lady is very regal. She is confident. She has a sweet little white cat with her. She's well resourced, both in herself. You can tell by her stance that she is confident, and you can tell by her dress and the colours that have been depicted on her that she is wealthy as well. So the Queen of Wands is all about having those inner resources, whether they are nervous system resources, whether they are a rich imagination and a rich inner life, or whether that's more worldly goods like finances, a stable home, security. All of these things contribute to this feeling of peacefulness. I think we often think that if we are spiritual, we can't be well off as well, and I don't believe that. I think that if you are going to be spiritual and giving a lot to other people, and if you are a healer, you deserve to be well paid for that, because you're only going to do good with that money. You know, you're not Jeff Bezos. So give yourself a little credit if you are, you know, still in this sort of starving artist trope. It's 2026, babe, we don't do that anymore. Affirmation associated with raspberry leaf in Michael Tierra's herbal is discretion and receptivity are the keys to my power. I love that. Receptivity is a key to my power. Receiving. How much do you struggle with receiving? That's your journal prompt for raspberry leaf. Where do I struggle with receiving? Is it compliments? Is it being well paid? Is it receiving time, nurturing? Where do I struggle with receiving? I'm going to dive into our next herb now. So raspberry leaf supports our physical womb, our emotional womb, and our receptivity. And the next herb, mugwort, adds another layer. We're going to get a little bit weird with mugwort. I'm going to move to my garden now, and where I've got mugwort growing because she's one of my favourite herbs, and we're going to do a little dive into what we can use mugwort for this new moon in Cancer.